listening to a One Pint Stand, a Minnesota craft beer podcast that tells the stories of craft beer in Minnesota and beyond. So kick back and grab a cold one. The show starts now. Hello, my name is Dan Bobian, and I write, produce, and host a One Pint Stand. I'm ecstatic that you're listening. This podcast has been a passion project of mine since 2016, so it's really important to me, and I really enjoy doing it. This is the first of what will be many episodes in 2023. This episode features Paige Latham Didora of Alcohol by Volume. Paige has been writing that blog for 10 years. She focuses on many different facets of the Minnesota craft beer scene and beyond. Paige is a brilliant writer, a passionate craft beer drinker. She has a discerning palate and is a wonderful friend. I'm elated that we were able to sit down at Town Hall Brewery in Minneapolis on Sunday, January 8th for a really delightful beer conversation. In fact, the conversation was so robust that it actually had to be split into two parts. So, this is part one, where we talk about some of the big changes to the Minnesota craft beer landscape that came in the form of legislation passed at the Capitol. So we highlight the law that allows breweries and tap rooms to sell 6-packs, 4-packs, and different size vessels out of their tap room. And then we also talked about the impact and kind of advent of being able to sell beverages with THC in them. So that's a big deal for the state, and we talked a lot about it. We also talked about dry January and what it means for people in and around the beer industry and beer in general. I absolutely adore sitting down with Paige to talk about beer because she has such wonderful convictions and insights when it comes to the beverage and the industry. So let's go out to Town Hall Brewery in Minneapolis and get this show started. Cheers.
Where are we?
We're at Minnesota, one of my favorite Minneapolis locations, and it's one of their several locations, the Town Hall Brewery, Minneapolis at Seven Corners.
Cheers.
They also, yes, cheers, definitely. And we're here on Sunday because
they have a new special that I just learned about.
They recently rolled out a beer and a bump.
Yes, and if you don't know what the bump is, it's liquor. Town Hall's a brew pub, for those of you joining us outside of the state of Minnesota. Not a lot of breweries in Minnesota can serve alcoholic products that they don't make, but having Town Hall being a brew pub and having food and being able to serve guest beers and liquor gives them an opportunity to be a little bit more creative.
Yeah, which I love. And I love coming here any day of the week, but Sunday is nice. It's very quiet, very peaceful. Apparently there's somebody at the bar telling dad jokes.
Oh.
He told you a joke on the way in.
I wish I knew his name so I could credit him, but he's about, 20 yards away.
It looks like a Jim. We'll call him
okay.
Jim the jokester.
Jim at the bar saw that I was waiting for a host to be seated and said, "Do you want to hear a joke?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, Do you know about the Norwegian Navy?" And I said, "No." And he said, "The Norwegian Navy added barcodes to their ships so that when they came home, you could scan the Navy in." And I laughed, and then Dan must have heard me laugh because then he showed me where his table was.
Yes, that's right. I jumped out and might have pulled a muscle. All right, so a One Pint Stand. It's a Minnesota craft beer podcast talking about a lot of different things. It centers around beer, but today's discussion is going to kind of delve in. Obviously, it's January 8th. Happy birthday to my wife, who's at home, maybe taking a nap. But today I thought we could kind of recap 2020, 2022, and then maybe talk about 2023 and the year that we hope will be better than the last one. So let's start off just with a question about when the year changes. When you think about beer, Do you do like beer-related New Year's resolutions on your, for you, like things that you like to do?
Not exactly, but I do look forward to the seasonality of beer. So I think drinking different beers at different times of the year has always been important to me. I have a few beer traditions that happen at certain times of the year. And I know one of those for some people is dry January, which I think we'll talk about. But for me, it's more like beers that were historically brewed at certain parts of the year. Like I really find Lenten beer fascinating. I think Oktoberfest obviously is very interesting, and it's fun to get into Oktoberfest because so many people, even people who aren't as nerdy as us, know a lot about Oktoberfest. So I think about the beer calendar a little bit more. I think about what kinds of beers are made in the winter. Like I always look forward every year to what Shell's Snowstorm is going to be, and I just had my first one on Friday. So those things that, you look for every season, more so than just necessarily a new year.
If my memory serves me correct, this year's Snowstorm was a Czech dark lager of some kind? Yes,
it's like a strong dark lager.
Okay.
Like it's a little bit higher in alcohol. Almost like, I don't know, has some elements of a Bock for sure, but isn't quite as rich. It's very, very good. I really liked it. Probably not unlike the beer you're drinking, actually, in some ways.
Yeah, so we're recording at Minneapolis Town Hall, and I am drinking the Stark Porter, which the person who was waiting on us said it was kind of like a Stark beer, kind of a combination of their regular porter, just with a little bit more of a German flair.
Yeah.
To me, it kind of tastes like Baltic Porter Light.
Yeah,
a little
I agree.
bit. But it's very good.
Lighter in body, but still really flavorful.
Yeah, a lot of flavor, a lot of nice roastiness. I thought I was getting maybe like a little hint of black licorice, but
I'm going to get that next.
It could have been, I got hit in the head with an ice dam earlier, so no, my synapses are not firing as they should. I think I like to do some New Year's resolutions, beer. I call them brew year's resolutions.
Of course you do.
I'm an English teacher and I love wordplay. But I was thinking about, one of the things that I want to do more of in 2023 is get out and explore more breweries.
Totally.
And I think that's still kind of a little bit of an aftershock or hangover from the pandemic.
Yeah.
When it was really, going out to breweries was a real chore and not as fun. And I felt that's one of the things we'll talk about as we kind of go back and dissect 2022, is I felt that in many ways, 2022 was very much more return to normality when it came to going to tap rooms, and that was a real positive for me. But that's one of the things I think I want to do more this year is try to get out and visit more tap rooms.
Like outstate? Like places you haven't been?
There's any and all of the above. There's ones... yesterday I went to Northbound Smokehouse.
Yeah, I saw you there.
Yes, we conversed. And that's one of the things that I told Andy. I'm like, the beers here are really good. And I used to come here all the time, but it's like now there's so many more choices.
Do you know why they got into making lagers?
I do not.
So aside from the Doppelbock and the Eisbock, which they've done for a long time, they were not brewing lagers really on a regular basis at all until the beginning of COVID, because suddenly they had different brewing schedule. They had more, they had tanks available for longer periods of time. And so they decided to get into lagers a little bit more. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, it makes sense because I know that that is a hyper local neighborhood spot. A lot of the people at first, I remember they did that when they opened. They did a thing where if you bought in, you could get like a growler, like one free growler per week, and then maybe.
I know that when they first opened, they did for $1,000. You would always get your first beer free because I have a friend who did that. They might have also had to go beer deals. I'm sure they did, but it was certainly get your first beer in the when you're sitting down at the bar, get your first beer free.
Yeah. And I think so that really helped forge a really strong local following. But I was really impressed yesterday. Obviously, I had the ice bock that they were poking out on the patio, and then I had Czech Dark Lager, which was also very good. I'm like, I need to come back here more. I don't know why it kind of fell out of the rotation. Well, I have a theory that it has to do with my hatred of Hiawatha, that 55, where you can never, I don't think it's legal to make 2 green lights in a row on that place. And folks, I do not do well with traffic.
That's true. So, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. I come from the better side of Hiawatha, so I don't have to cross it to get there, which is why it's a frequent spot for me.
Yeah, yeah. And now
they have a big regular crowd.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's just nice, and I always like talking to Andy. He's a very knowledgeable individual and fun to converse with. So I'd say my biggest brew year's resolution is just getting out to more places, revisiting ones I haven't been, and then exploring ones. Like I really want to go to. I've heard some good things about Sunken Ship that opened in 2022 in Princeton. I've heard some nice things about there. I work in Hopkins. I haven't been to Bear Cave yet, so we'll get into some of those new breweries that opened in the last year. So let's, and I guess that's a good segue into kind of cover. We're going to recap 2022. Again, this is the first episode of a One Pint Stand for 2023. We're going to be doing more episodes this year than last year. And I'm with Paige from Alcohol by Volume, a friend I've known. How long have we known each other?
You know, I was just telling someone at your holiday party that I cannot remember how we met. I can't remember how we met. And then maybe that's a good thing. I don't remember when we first met.
Yeah. I think it was definitely...
It was definitely through beer.
Yeah, it was for sure through beer.
But
I know
how?
that I followed your blog, and then probably it must have been... at something. Maybe it was one of the very first Insight gravity well things.
Like
maybe?
a media press thing?
Yeah, I'm sure something like that. And then just a lot of some of our social circles are similar.
That's true.
So it's nice to call you a friend though. So we're going to talk about 2022. So let's start with maybe some of the noteworthy things that happened in Minnesota in the last year.
It was kind of a big year.
That kind of affected craft beer. As I was racking my brain, the first things that popped up were both having to do with legislation. One was the passing of the law that allowed breweries to sell 6-packs, 4-packs, different things out of their front door as opposed to only being able to do crowlers and growlers.
Right, in 2 very specific sizes.
Right, yeah, because the crowlers are 25-ounce cans and the growlers are 64-ounce bottles.
Side quest. Do you think that the fact that our crowlers are a different size meant that we didn't have such of a supply and demand issue? For example, I heard that other states had a hard time keeping up with demand for 32-ounce crowlers. Yeah. Because that's what a lot of states sell.
Right.
Whereas I don't think that was as much of an issue in Minnesota. Did you hear anything about that?
All I heard is I thought aluminum was scarce.
That's true.
That's true. No matter what size it was. And I guess my thinking was I was kind of afraid that if every other state in the union is using 32-ounce crowlers, why are we doing these 25-ounce ones?
I thought the same.
So I was happy that they didn't get rid of that because I really like crowlers way better than growlers.
Oh, yeah.
The freshness. There's a lot of breweries that the quality of the beer in a crowler is on par with the quality of the cans. Specifically, I'm talking about Lupulin. They put CO2 in the crowlers. They say, and I know it to be true.
Oh, yeah, they purge
that can last.
They test it
for several months.
They test it.
Yep.
They test the DO. It's a really important consumer. The average consumer, I don't think, realizes that a lot of times when you go to a brewery, I'm talking about nationwide, they just, if they're filling crowlers to order, they're usually just filling off a tap line, capping it and sealing it, and you should be drinking it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but it's not the same shelf life as what I feel like a lot of breweries strive to, at least here in the Twin Cities, to create a shelf. You should still keep it refrigerated. I'm not giving you permission to leave it in a hot car, but it should have a longevity that you can rely on a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's a can. It'll be good for whenever. And they crack it open. It's like, oh, this doesn't taste. This beer was bad. It's like, well, you probably should have had it like 2 months ago when you bought it. So that. But
I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. That's what this show is all about. Interrupting.
Well, then I'll be really good at it. Because I'm a big interrupter.
So I was pretty excited when that law passed. I was a little frustrated that law took so long.
Oh, yeah.
Because I believe we were one of the last states in the country, outside of like maybe one of those ones in the South where they have a lot of like crazy conservative laws that where you couldn't sell beer out of your tap room.
Yes.
And the biggest argument against it was like, if people are buying their beer in tap rooms, they're not going to go to the liquor stores, which I thought was such a horrible argument.
Yeah, I just see those as two really different things.
So I was happy that it passed, and it seems like it's going well. In talking to some people, I know that a lot of people are selling a lot more. They're putting a lot more offerings into cans now. That
is a good point, that there are more options available.
And so I think that's good for the consumer and the brewery, because then they can go through more product. I was talking to Cable over at Lakes and Legends, and he's like, they're moving cans a lot. Now,
interesting.
One of the stipulations about selling beer out of the tap room is it has to be like a SKU that would be
is available
packaged
to distributors.
Okay.
That's right.
So, and maybe that, I guess from the consumer standpoint, that's good because you're getting it fresh.
Yes.
Because it's like being rotated through more. And so I think it's good. I think it's, being able to like, if you go to a brewery and you really like a beer, you're like, oh, I want to take some home. Or we just did our online Secret Santa thing with our beer blogger friends from across the country.
That was great.
And, if you try something, you're like, oh, I want to get a 4-pack so I can send one to a friend.
We do that all the time. You break it up into 4 packages.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Don't tell our local delivery services. I just incriminated myself.
Don't try to send beer to Canada. That's a whole nother podcast.
I know. I was telling Rick about that.
So I think that's cool. I think, again, my frustration with it, why didn't it happen sooner? I think that would have helped places a lot during COVID who were really frustrated with like all of a sudden, when you couldn't have your tap room open or places that chose not to, and what do you do with all that beer?
Totally.
So I think it's good. It's definitely keeping up with the times. And I haven't heard anybody say it's been a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean the people who thought, from what I gathered, the people who were the most worried or concerned about a law like that getting passed were liquor stores and distributors. And I haven't heard anything negative as far as performance on their end. My liquor stores that I go to seem, just as full of beer and busy as they've been. And I know that 2020 and 2021 were pretty record-breaking for liquor stores because people were wanting to do kind of a one shop and get everything and take it home and be safe. And so I haven't heard of the pendulum swinging back, but it has in some industries. So maybe we'll see that this year. I don't know.
Yeah. Because didn't it hit pretty much right away in the year?
You mean
January,
last year?
In 2021? I think that's when the announcement was made that it was getting close.
Did it start in March though? Didn't it? They announced it in January, and
I think they announced it, and then there was that weird period of time where they were like, okay, how is this going to work? And I think some of the issues with the law was like they didn't have the resources for the level of oversight that they wanted.
This sounds familiar.
Some breweries were like, yeah, we're going to just start selling it.
Yeah.
And
I think some cities overlooked. Some cities were fine with it, right? I mean, I remember that there were certain areas in the state where they were a little bit, businesses were reluctant to jump on it and say, okay, we're going to do this. And my impression was that it was due to local legislature.
Right. Yeah. And I think St. Paul breweries were a little bit more hesitant because St. Paul, for whatever reason, is always a little weird with their regulations. Those weirdos on the east side of the river, I don't know. But then I know that some breweries were just like, yeah, we're selling our stuff now. And it's kind of like if we get our hands slapped.
It felt to me like a little bit of an aftershock of Sunday sales.
Yeah.
And it also felt similar as the THC legislation, where suddenly things were happening and no one knew how to handle them.
Right. Hey, thank you for listening. Hopefully you're enjoying a One Pint Stand. My goal with this podcast is the simple and humble aim of making craft beer accessible to everyone through story and conversation. Enjoying craft beer is a passion of mine, and I love chatting about it with other people. A One Pint Stand is also a platform to help breweries tell their stories. I love getting out to visit breweries, both in Minnesota and beyond, and meet other interesting beer people. If you are also into those things, you probably want to keep tabs on a One Pint Stand. So, go ahead and follow a One Pint Stand on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We would also appreciate any and all positive reviews on iTunes to help make it easier for other like-minded craft beer geeks to find us. Lastly, if you like reading about craft beer, I recently started my own beer blog, and all my writing can be found at aonepintstand.com. After writing for 8 years as editor-in-chief at Beer Ploma, it was time for me to start my own thing. So, make sure you check out the blog for some interesting craft beer content of the written variety. I truly appreciate you listening and taking the time to enjoy our stories. Now back to the show. Great segue, because that's the second thing that I thought was like pretty major in 2022 was the THC, the legalization of THC. Specifically
in beverage and edible form.
Yep. And so I know that like right away, I think there were a couple cities or municipalities that were like, okay, wait, we're gonna hold on and see what we need to do. And some places were like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I feel like in talking to several breweries that have embraced it, that it is going crazy.
It's going crazy, and I have learned that there is demand from other businesses to breweries that are already making these products to start making them for other companies, and even to send them outside of the state, which I didn't fully grasp. I'm just not a big user of THC. I have plenty of friends who are. I'm fully supportive of legalization. It's just not front of mind for me. But I spoke to Ben Jordan, who is one of the owners of ABB Technology.
Okay.
Back in November. And he kind of opened my eyes as to how groundbreaking the change in the law really was. Because to me, I was thinking, okay, this is legal. Breweries can now make beverages with cannabis in them and edibles as well, which some are doing. Great. That's great. And then when he started talking about the fact that Minnesota is poised to be exporting those products to other states and to even other big national brands, that's a big revenue source. It's a big deal. And it's a big deal for them as a business, but it's also a big deal for breweries and places that are going to farm those products out to other businesses.
Yeah, I was at one brewery and they were like, yeah, we just put in an order. We're canning 80,000 cans of a
for
THC.
Another company?
No, for their own. That was like, they're like, we're getting in because there's really no drawbacks.
No downside.
Financially.
And there's been some little hiccups. I know, like, for example, I go to Venn a lot, and they sell a to-go product that has THC. But they, for a while, and maybe even still, they're only taking cash for it because their POS system will not allow for selling THC, which is like, there's a lot of questions there.
Yeah.
And there's other places that are allowing you to drink them in-house. Like you can go to Modest and you can drink their THC beverage. They have 2 different dosages. They have a 3 milligram and a 5 milligram, or they did when I was there in November. And you can drink it at the bar. So the interpretation of the law and what it means for your insurance, your POS, even just how you want to run your business, it's kind of an untapped situation.
Well, maybe this is a dumb question. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. But I know that in Colorado, when they started opening up dispensaries, it's all cash.
Oh, really?
So,
Still?
like, well, at least when it started, and that was like that was the main issue. You're a business, and you've got, six figures.
That's a good point. That's a really good
around.
point.
That's a little dangerous.
It is.
And then I don't know. I haven't tried any of the THC seltzers yet for beverages. I just did a half a gummy last summer, and folks, the album is coming out shortly. No, it's not really my thing.
It's not my thing either.
I don't know.
I just get kind of tired and hungry.
Yeah,
to
I
be
get a
honest
little
with you.
tired, sleepy, mellow. I felt like I was like sitting on a beach, warm, which is great. But like if I'm out and about in a tap room, I want to have a little bit more energy. So I would imagine, I don't know, like I don't have any personal experience with really going, having more than a little teeny weeny little bit, and how that would affect you. But I would imagine there's like some health risks maybe with having too much. I mean, if you can just like pound from what I've heard, 5 milligrams is not a lot.
And that's kind of what is considered, from what I'm hearing, 5 milligrams is considered like a serving or like a dose. So people who are making beverages that have more than that amount, you're supposed to be, this is very paraphrased, but you're supposed to have a indication, I think, on the label or on the can saying like how many servings it is, because I know that some breweries are sending out their beverages to be tested, like dose tested.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can kind of round up. So like, for example, a lot of people are doing 5 milligrams in their beverages. And if it's like just at the high end of 4, you put 5 milligrams on it because you don't want the dosage to be more than what's declared.
Right.
But I recently heard that some breweries are going to be doing like a more concentrated version. I know Wooden Ship is one.
Okay.
Where they're going to be doing a more concentrated beverage, so it's less volume for the same like dose, so to speak. If that makes sense. So I think consumers have to be kind of, I don't know, maybe careful is kind of a prudish word to say, but they at least have to be aware that there's different dosages in beverages. And if someone hands you a can of something that has THC in it, hey, go for it. But you might want to know, you, half a gummy guy, might want to know how much you're about to consume.
Right. If you see me coming in with a ukulele, don't give me the heavy stuff. Well, yeah.
But I think it's great. I'm all for it. But in order for it to be effective for everyone, I would like to see more education around what is in the product. And I don't mean that from like a legislative standpoint. I mean more to educate consumers about, hey, try this, you might enjoy this, or this is going to be different because it's less or it's more concentrated, or those are just things that we all need to be aware of, just like with alcohol.
It should be like a Funyun scale. Like, how many bags of Funyuns will you need after ingesting one serving?
Right. And is everyone using, I have a lot of questions. Is everyone using the same product? Like the same distillate, the same concentrated product? Yeah. So are we going to start educating consumers just like they do at dispensaries about what it is that you're consuming? Maybe one makes us tired and makes you want to learn the ukulele and makes someone else feel totally different.
Yeah, that'd be good. Because right now, I and maybe that's what is kind of keeping me from like, jumping in the pools. Like, I don't know how it's going to affect me. Versus like, so we're at Town Hall. Okay, they in a month, give or take, about 4 weeks. Right. They're going to be doing their barrel aged.
My favorite.
I know exactly how a 10-ounce pour of their barrel-aged ETW is going to affect me. Right. I don't know how much.
And know how much cheese you're going to have to eat to counteract.
Exactly. So this is a half a wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano. So it's just, I don't have that reference point. Yeah. And a lot of people do, but it is exciting. I know there was a time I was at Dangerous Man, sitting at the bar, and a former student came up to me who is now working for a company that manufactures these THC products.
Oh, really?
And so they were working with Dangerous Man, and Dangerous Man had done a couple.
They've started. They've had a few. Yep.
And he had brought in some samples of THC pretzels, and so like to your point earlier of like more different things coming out. Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the breadth of options that people have, not just for like seltzers or beverages, but little snacks and whatnot. What if, this will really put a kink in the matrix, but like, what if they have THC Funyuns?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's gonna blow the doors off this city.
You got the munchies, and you're gonna keep having the munchies as long as you eat these.
It's the snake eating its own tail, wherever that
exactly
came from.
Right.
That's the
but
metaphor.
do you want to tell people outside of Minnesota or who may not know how this came to be?
Okay, so
because like we're in a situation where we're either gonna backpedal or it's full steam ahead, right?
Well, yeah, and so, but when this passed, there was a divided Senate and House in the state of Minnesota. I believe that the Senate
don't ask me
was Republican and the House was Democrat or vice versa.
Someone's screaming at their phone right now.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe on Instagram, send me if you can tilt your head, because if you haven't already popped the Tylenol. Basically there was a drastic misinterpretation of the law from the Republican side.
And just a lack of proofreading.
Yeah, and they didn't really read it, so they passed it. They accidentally passed it. Legalizing this type of thing is not a conservative platform. That's not a talking point that they have. So it was really kind of funny that now, you can't... A phrase somebody I used to work with used to use was like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
What? That's a great phrase.
In reference to like when kids did something, like sometimes you can't take back a behavior, so you just need to...
or like you can't stuff those crescent rolls back in the tube once they explode like an atomic bomb.
But if you could, I would vote for you for president. If you had that ability.
That's what we're in now. Crescent rolls are out. Toothpaste
crescent rolls... Nope, no more exploding crescent rolls.
Yeah.
So that's how it came to be, and it's like created this like kind of a Wild West situation with all these products, and I think they're definitely playing catch up as to how to regulate it. But and now in the state of Minnesota, they're kind of go full steam ahead with legalizing, because as people like to say, they think Minnesota is a very progressive state.
Well, especially when we're compared to our neighbors.
Well, right, yeah. But really, I mean, we're our neighbors have legalized
that is
marijuana.
True. That is
several.
true.
I think Wisconsin, Illinois,
South Dakota.
And we haven't done that yet. So I think that's going to be the next thing to fall. But that was a really big development, and I've watched. I know Modest. Dangerous Man.
Yes.
I think
Fair
Inbound
State
is into it. Fair State, Indeed.
Wooden Ship.
I mean, there's a ton.
I'm wondering,
of
are there outstate breweries that are doing it? If people want to comment, I would be curious to know if there's Duluth area breweries, Rochester area breweries.
I'm pretty sure doesn't Bent Paddle do?
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a great question, and it's not because I don't follow them or care. THC is exciting to me, but not. It's not a product I'm going to buy.
Yeah, I know
for the most part.
Lupulin is doing it.
Are they? Do they have a name for what they are called?
Yeah, they do, and it's escaping me right now. It's kind of, there's several of the people on their staff know a lot about that stuff, and so they always create some really crazy names. It was, I can't, shoot. This is going to bug me now. I'm going to think of it at 4 in the morning, and I'll text you.
You're sitting in front of a computer.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, let me just... So the THC thing is pretty interesting. But so between that and the ability to sell beer out of tap rooms, was there anything else that you thought in the last year that was noteworthy to talk about in Minnesota or maybe nationally in craft beer?
That's a great question. I feel like we haven't seen quite as many like acquisitions and mergers as we have in the past couple of years leading into this year. I think we're seeing a few breweries that are now distilling. Like I know that's pretty notable in Minnesota. Shells has opened. I mean, they have their sour kind of tap room, but now they also have Black Frost Distilling. It's obviously a separate company, but same relationship. What else? Nationally, I feel like I think it's been a little bit quieter of a year. There just hasn't been a lot of groundbreaking news. I feel like we're in a situation where people are kind of coasting and trying to kind of recalibrate what's going to come out of all of this. I mean, we're still seeing a ton of seltzers and I think nationally there have been some more THC brands too.
Yeah.
A lot of NA products, I think.
Yeah.
It's been a really good year for non-alcoholic brewing, either bigger brands or smaller places trying to add to their portfolio. I know here in Minneapolis, basically a non-alcoholic liquor store has opened up, for lack of a better term.
Right.
It's called Marigold. I think they were I think they were a little bit delayed in their opening because I swore they were supposed to open up a few months ago, but they're open now. They're at Nicollet and 35th or 36th.
Okay.
35th.
Oh yeah.
And it's all the whole store is NA products. So some of it varies. You know, some of the products I think do have cannabis. Some are more just on the seltzer side. Some are meant to replace alcoholic beverages like non-alcoholic wine, non-alcoholic beer, but it's interpreted pretty broadly, and so I think we're going to see more of that.
Cool. That is interesting. So I know that I am working on an article right now about Dry January.
Yeah.
The concept of that. So maybe that's a good segue into Dry January because I think each of us probably has some pretty distinct opinions on it and thoughts about it. So if you don't know what Dry January is, I feel like it's a fairly new thing in the last 5 years. Maybe not. Or maybe I'm just more conscious of it because I've seen more of my friends doing it. So it's basically like taking the month of January off from partaking in alcohol.
Right.
And I threw it out on my Facebook, just like anybody doing Dry January, if you wouldn't mind answering some questions. And a lot of people said, sure, ask away. So I asked a lot of questions about like, okay, so have you done Dry January before? Is this your first time? What kind of motivated you to do it? What are you hoping to gain from Dry January? Like what, and then kind of like, how do you navigate that if you are somebody who often goes out? You know, what are you going to drink when you're out with people? Is it just going to be like, some people said, I'll probably just have like soda water and lemon. Right. Some people said, well, they're excited Rick Spalding said he was excited to try a lot of NA beers and he was going to kind of try to get around and sample a lot of different ones.
Totally. And that's becoming easier and easier to do.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. And, the flip side of the coin, when you think about the industry perspective, I also talked to Matt Kennevan, the owner of Dabbler Depot.
Yep. They have a ton of options.
They do have a ton of options, but he was kind enough to share his perspective about it. And it's he said, selfishly, I'm a liquor store owner.
Yes.
I'm not a huge fan of Dry January.
Yes.
I don't think that doesn't mean he's not a fan of people's wellness.
Right, or moderation.
What I asked him, like, what would you like to see instead of Dry January? And he said, well, just like, maybe just like a little bit, like abstain a couple days a week.
Sure.
From drinking throughout the year.
Right.
But, as I've learned through talking to different people in the brewery, restaurant, service industry as a whole, January is a very slow month in the service industry. January and February are pretty slow for probably a lot of reasons. A lot of people cited, maybe they overdid it in December.
Right.
There's a lot of, with the holidays.
And overdid it could mean a lot of things. It could mean overdid it on the money side. It can mean overdid it on just the way you spend your time.
Right.
And you just want to recalibrate that. But I agree. I think there's a lot of, to me, Dry January feels a little bit different than like a New Year's resolution per se. It's more of like, feel like there's a lot of people who do it every year.
Yeah.
I know some people who do like Sober October or like try to do it at a different time of year.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm going to try to do it at a different time of year. So that's the way that I want to kind of split the difference of what Kennevan is saying and what other people have expressed is I want to do a dry month, and I just think that I would rather do it in a month that's not January.
Right.
For that reason.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because especially coming off the pandemic where, so many places struggled to survive. And this came up on our Secret Santa chat last night, where like now, the loans that people got to try to like tread water are gone, but the demand isn't quite there.
It's hard.
You think about your favorite places to go to get a drink, your favorite places to go to grab a meal.
Right.
How do you still support them and still have that balance of health? I think that's really important. I know in the last several months I've tried to not drink as much because I have some personal health goals that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
And it makes like, sometimes there's like, I really like to go out.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's maybe one of the things, if you do go out to a brewery, try the NA beer.
Yeah.
And the NA beer we're not talking like the O'Douls from the 90s. No,
not at all. It's getting better and better. And there's different types. There's a lot of different types. If you're curious about NA beer, talk to your brewer friends, talk to your industry friends. There's a lot of options out there, whether it's at a brewery or at a liquor store. Some of them taste like beer. I run into this sometimes when I do, my husband runs a restaurant company. I guess I don't know how to explain that very well. A cooking company.
He makes the food.
Yes, he's a chef. And we do private events in people's homes. We're
Shout
called
out to Houndstooth.
That's our brand.
Yes.
And we do a lot of private events in people's homes. And, every once in a while, someone will say, we have, one guest out of the dozen or whatever that doesn't drink. And so I have to think to myself, and it's awkward. Like, these are people I don't know. And so it's like, do you mean that they don't drink? Like, I shouldn't give them something that tastes like beer? Like, are they avoiding alcohol for health reasons, for another reason? So it's always a bit of a balancing act of like, are you wanting to avoid alcohol and just like drink something totally different? Or are you just wanting to take the alcohol of what you already know that you like? And I think it's important to have a goal with Dry January, I think.
Yeah.
Is it to see how you feel at the end? Is it to just, give your liver a break? Is it to save money? There could be a number of reasons. Is it because your friends are doing it? Those are all valid reasons to do it. But when February 1st rolls around, it's like, okay, so what did you learn? Do you want to go in the 11 other months of the year, do them differently? Or are you just back to your,
Well, and
there's no wrong answer.
One person, a coworker of mine, did Dry January last year, and then
made up for lost time in February.
In one sitting, in Friday night at Unmapped.
You're like, okay, it's not January anymore.
Maybe you should slow down a little bit. So I think there's that, and I think you're right. Everybody should have a goal, but I've several people mentioned that, like, yes, financially, I want to save a little money. Several people said, I want to jumpstart a health goal.
Sure.
So that seemed like a logical way to do it. And other people were just like, I noticed like I drank a lot.
Yes.
Not necessarily in volume, but in quantity of days.
Or frequency. Yeah.
Yep, frequency.
I think there was a lot of public awareness of drinking during the height of the pandemic. And by height of the pandemic, I mean like the isolation days of the pandemic. Yep. I think we were all wondering, like, should I really be having a beer at lunch? Everyone's different. Everyone's practices and routines about alcohol are different. But I think the good thing about that is at least it came to the forefront, and we were trying to be a little bit more aware of how much we were consuming.
Yeah, and I think it's probably really hard. If you work in the industry, there's a lot of temptation. The hours are crazy, and a lot of people do it, and it's part of the culture. And I wonder how much thought is put in, if you own a restaurant or a brewery or a distillery or a winery, to like support your employees and your family that struggles with that balance. And like what are the safety nets to ensure that there isn't a slipping into like something that could be bad.
Right.
And Jerry wrote.
I was just thinking about that
article for Good Beer Hunting. Was that a Sightlines?
Yes, I think so. Yep.
I know he contributed and wrote.
And he wrote about 8 or 10
of the people,
folks, several of which were local.
Yeah, and it was really. The stories were really interesting to read, and some of them were pretty gut wrenching. But just like a lot of the just like the pressures and the stress
Right.
of the industry, and how it, on some of the cases, how it really can sneak up on you.
That's
and
right.
so maybe in that, the dry January is a good kind of a filter or a litmus test to see, all right, where am I at with my relationship with alcohol? Because I think, and I don't, there's a weird thing where, like, you know, depending on who your friends are, like if you go someplace and you don't have a beer, some of them are going to like, why aren't you drinking?
Oh yeah. As a woman, I think about that all the time.
And, you know, it's like, well, that's none of your business. Like, well, let me.
You're like, I like you. Do you want me to give you a real reason, or should it matter?
And it's like, I feel like when somebody asks that question, you're immediately put kind of on the defensive. Whereas, like, maybe sobriety could be, the context could be turned a little bit. Yeah. And maybe instead of like asking why you're drinking, asking, are you okay? You know, or just leave it alone. I don't know. I just think like
it feels a little bit 0 to 60 sometimes. Yeah. And I guess I am not an expert in addiction. I'm not an expert in abstaining from alcohol. My question always is, like, when I see people that I know completely turning away from alcohol, I'm very supportive if that's if you feel like that's what you need to do, and that's a whole other conversation, but I'm completely in support of it. Yeah. I just feel like there's not a lot of middle ground, and I don't know how to have that conversation, and I don't want it to seem like I don't like believe in alcoholism, or I don't support my friends who aren't drinking. I completely do. And I think that we're seeing that a lot in this surge of non-alcoholic beverages that are really well made and really enjoyable and really on par with a cocktail. Yeah. But what about folks who aren't like looking to completely give up alcohol for the rest of their lives, but want to make really good decisions, you know, as much as they can, and learn about what alcohol means for their body, and doing things like dry January? It just feels like it can be really all or nothing. And I know that when it comes to not drinking, that's important. It's important for people who aren't drinking to be all or nothing. Right. But those of us in between who want to make better decisions, there's just not a lot of good resources or conversations out there. And I think dry January is an exception to that. We hear about it a lot this time of year, and that's where it ends. Well, and it's something that is really has a lot of people are into it, and it is viewed as a positive. Yeah. And I just wonder why we can't transfer that attitude about dry January to the rest of the year, if that's what you want to take a break. And I think if you want to take a break, but you still want to be involved with like going out, thank goodness there is a lot of choice now, and the quality is great. You referenced ABV technology earlier. Yes. I reached out to Ashley Hoff, and she gave me a lot of really interesting numbers and some information about all the different breweries that are doing some wonderful things with them. And I've been to several of the places. Lupulin has a non-alcoholic version of their tropical fun pants, which is like a fruited sour. Yeah. It's delicious. Yeah. As a kind of a joke, last January, December, January, they were doing this thing. It was like a competition at the Roseville Old Chicago, where you could you like win a draft line? Yeah. And so I was with Mahad and my Wednesday group. I love Mahad. So we did it, and then they were in the finals, and I get there, and it's like people from Dual Citizen. And then I look over, and it's like everybody from Lupulin. Yeah. They're like, Dan, you're here to go. Right. I'm like, it's like when you have to choose the side of the aisle that you sit on. It was so awful. And the hilarious thing, maybe not hilarious, I don't know. It's a little dicey, but like Dual Citizen won by like 3 beers. And that was exactly the number of beers that I consumed. I'm not saying it's my fault. Oh, my gosh. But I drove up to Lupulin on like the 30th of December with like Charles and Liz from the Dabbler Depot. Yeah. And every beer they served me was an NA Tropical Fun Pants as like my penance for that. And they're like, oh, hey,
it's you.
And you're like, I'll just
traitor.
be the designated driver.
Yeah, it was really funny.
That's
and I'm
really
like,
funny.
well, and it was great because they were non-alcoholic beers.
I know.
So
there are some very good ones out there.
So they had
I like
that.
Arbeiter has a really good NA.
Yeah.
You know, when Bauhaus had one of the first from ABV Technology, I'm fairly certain.
That was the Helles, right? Or what did they call it?
It was their Pilsner.
Okay.
It was either their Helles or their Pilsner, I think.
Yeah.
And when it started out, it was very good. And then I think it was rocky for a while. And now it's become really good again. And I think the quality overall is just on the rise. And there's no reason that you should feel like you can't participate in having fun and going out and seeing people if you don't want to drink alcohol. I would say, tell your friends, have people hold you accountable. Go out, try to do those things, but just remove the alcohol. Now is a better time than any. And I don't mean now as in January. I mean now in the place where we are in the industry, there's so many options available that you shouldn't feel like you can't participate in your lifestyle. If you remove the alcohol.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And I think Tom Berg, one of the owners of Falling Knife, he said that breweries need to do a better job of really advertising that they have NA options.
Completely
because, then that just makes it more, the industry wants to be more inclusive on many fronts. And this is one area where it's pretty easy. Just get the word out more that you have either an NA beer on tap or you've got NA beers in the cooler that people can buy.
You just make it part of your offering. It doesn't have to be like this weird side thing you're doing. If you're going to make an NA beer, make it really good and advertise it just like you do any other beer. It's like there's a lot of reasons why people don't drink, whether it's intermittently, whether it's all the time, and it shouldn't be like this weird underground thing.
Yeah. Or like if you do drink, there have been numerous times where I've been out at a place and I've had 3 beers over the span of a long evening.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, I can't have any more beer, but I still want to have something.
I do that all the time.
They've got an NA one. I'll just have that. So that allows you to continue
to be with your friends and enjoy yourself.
And be social in a responsible way. So I really think that's kind of an important thing. Well, that's a wrap on the first part of our 2022 recap show at a One Pint Stand. Remember, there will be a second part that will drop next week. I hope you found the conversation between Paige and I interesting. Paige has such great passion for her craft, and I hope that you felt that came through in our conversation. Now remember to follow a One Pint Stand on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to stay current on all the episodes of the podcast, as well as my new beer blog that can be found at aonepintstand.com. I cannot wait to share with you all the exciting content I have planned for 2023. I want to thank Paige for joining me, and I hope that you will tune in for our next episode as we turn the focus to breweries and some interesting conversation and scuttlebutt around happenings in the Minnesota craft beer scene, including, but not limited to, the openings that are happening on the horizon in 2023. We're going to delve into what's happening at Dangerous Man and more. So, this has been another episode of A One Pint Stand, a Minnesota craft beer podcast where the pants stay on, but the caps come off. Cheers.
Jim at the bar saw that I was waiting for a host to be seated and said, "Do you want to hear a joke?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, Do you know about the Norwegian Navy? And I said, "No." And he said, "The Norwegian Navy added barcodes to their ships so that when they came home, you could scan the Navy in." And I laughed and I laughed. And then Dan must have heard me laugh because then he showed me where his table was.
Yes, that's right. I jumped out and might have pulled a muscle.